Hello and welcome everybody to today's webinar on how to become an effective business leader. Just before we go any further, I'd like to do a little bit of housekeeping before we start. If we could have the next slide, please. So all attendees are muted. To ask questions, click the orange arrow and the box should come out and you can type in your questions into the question box. All those questions are anonymous. Today's webinar will be recorded, so you can have a look again on YouTube. Please subscribe to our channel there. But please do, if you're listening live, ask your questions today. So just before we get going into the main topic for the day, we're with our strategic farmer from Heanton Barton, Jim Kirk. The reason we're doing this webinar today is in the past we've done quite a lot of technical content with Jim, but we've recognized that an area for improvement for Jim would probably be in the management of his business. So that's his next focus area. Before we get into the webinar itself, we've also got Mike King, Sector Council member for AHDB Dairy, with us today. Mike, would you mind just talking us through a little bit on the latest from the AHDB Dairy Sector Council?
Yeah, thank you, Tom. I'm just going to run through some of the things that were highlighted on the Vote for Future for AHDB Dairy. I'm a recent member of the Dairy Sector Council, so I'm coming into this with quite a wide view, and obviously was very encouraged by some of the feedback that we got when we went out for the vote. So obviously the main things, as you can see from the screen, are that came out highest in people's thought process of what they thought AHDB should be doing is obviously the reputation, education and eat balanced, and those on the bottom end were the environment, breeding, genetics and people working in agriculture. Having said that, we will be continuing on a couple of work streams within those areas. Working in agriculture, particularly, everything will be ceased other than the Agri Leader programme, and there will be a number of other changes as well. So work will be downstreamed in certain areas and really focusing the levy payers money towards the promotion of dairy into the UK and the public. So obviously we've come up with a new dairy sector plan. I was quite enthused that Lyndon Edwards, who's the new dairy sector council chair, joined just before the vote. So he's obviously got a great deal of experience and is able to use that experience to help deliver that plan for levy payers. Obviously there's some really key themes that came out, as I mentioned, regarding protecting the brand of UK dairy and promotion of it being a healthy product, especially in the market, or not necessarily the market, but particularly in the environment we're in, where there's other people competing for that space of what's good and what's bad for you to eat. So obviously there was, we were going to make sure that we did stick to the data and give clear evidence on how and why we were able to make these claims in around that, and not forgetting the practical support for farmers will still be continued in obviously the strategic farms and the genetics work, which some may not be able to, may not be aware of, which is the genetics work is that AHDB do is all collated by AHDB and is what the breeders use. So it's not their data; it is actually AHDB's data. So that just the next slide here just gives us a little bit of what I've just touched on there, and particularly with the areas that we'll be working towards, but obviously the work areas that we're going to be looking to reduce or stop in the following. So animal health and welfare work has been reviewed, and just the areas that we kept going are the ones that's going to help protect the reputation of the industry. So there will be stuff on antibiotics, and Yoni's working along with that as well, with the initiatives that are already set up. Obviously, some of the other work on BVD and mastitis and clot and gold pain was stop, and also some of the benchmarking on trade deals and wood use. So a lot of this is already being duplicated by some of the other consultancy groups. And as I mentioned before, we'll discontinue the work around labour apart from the Agri-Leader programme. I don't know if there's another slide. I think that's over to Heather. So I think hopefully
before we go over to Heather, Mike, thanks very much for that. And Mike, I think it's fair to say that you've probably been through the experience that Jim's putting himself through right now in terms of the direction of his business. So we came to visit you at the beginning of the month. I know Jim was suitably impressed. So if you wouldn't mind staying online with us, I think some of your experiences could be quite valuable as we go throughout this morning's session. Jim, would you mind just introducing anybody listening to Heanton Barton who's not been down to visit at one of your other events?
Yeah, so I'm Jim Kirk from Heanton Barton Farm. We've got 610 cows. We're milking 530 of them through a 60-point rotary milking parlour. We are a housed herd. I've got family members. Well, it used to be a family farm, but now as the business has grown, I've now got employees that are outside the family, and really we try to rear all of our own replacements. I own 520 acres and I rent a further 300.
Fantastic. Yeah. Thank you very much. I think we're going to go into the roles and responsibilities within that business as we go through this morning's session. So we're very fortunate today to have Heather Wildman. Jim and Heather have been working together over the last few months, looking at how Jim can alter his working practices. So Heather, if you'd like to introduce yourself and to what it is you'd like to cover today, that'd be fantastic.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you for inviting me to join you for this webinar and to work and meet with Jim, which has been a treat. So I'm Heather Wildman from Saviour Associates. I specialise in staff management, leadership, succession and resilience as well. And I've got a real pride and passion for staff management recruitment. I think my experience of having bosses that could lift you up, encourage you, motivate you, recognise and identify skills and talents in you that you never knew you were capable of or could dream of achieving. But unfortunately, I've also had experiences of absolutely terrible employers and bosses and managers that would break you down, stifle you, just break you and demotivate you and everything as well. And I guess the way I work is from a very real, very practical approach, very hands-on, but hopefully it's a little bit of fun as well, isn't it, Jim? It's quite a practical way of working. I love this slide from Muhammad Ali. I firmly believe if you love what you are doing, it shows. Winners in lives are excited about what they're doing and where they're going. And I've been privileged to work in many sectors and many industries all over the UK and overseas. And you can really, really tell when someone loves what they're doing. They're excited, they're passionate, they're buzzing, they've got an energy, they smile, they're driven, they're motivated, and it's contagious. People want to work with them. People want to be associated with them. People want to be on board. And sometimes when I look at farming, I often think, how often do you see a happy, excited farmer? And I think, I know they're smiling on the inside, but I do sometimes have to tell them, maybe tell your face, because they can look quite grim, quite aggressive, quite intimidating, and quite stern as well. And that, I think, we do have a bit of an image issue in agriculture. And it's interesting to see what Mike was saying about where the sector's going and everything. And you know, I think we need to look at, you know, when you're talking about agriculture, you're talking about farming, you know, staff management and recruitment, retention are some of the biggest issues you hear everybody talking about. And I live and work on a 1,200 cow dairy unit that we milk 3 times a day, and we have 20 employed staff here as well. So I am living and breathing the dream ourselves every day, and we're just going through some interesting challenges at the moment, that you just never know what is around the corner. And when I start with any of my clients, the way we're going to look at today, we're going to give some practical tips and tools. We're going to hopefully help, you know, how do you grow from just managing a family farm into managing a business when you're going through growth and expansion? How do you prioritise your tasks and time management? A little bit about that as well. Effective delegation, because, you know, working with Jim, one of the things everybody identified is that, you know, Jim has got a brilliant farm, a great team, super capable, confident individual, but burnout is not far away. Trying to do so much, trying to juggle everything and finding it quite hard to delegate and to ask others to do jobs that he feels he should maybe be doing himself. And so one of the things I look at, and Jim, I will be bouncing back a little bit of theory and then a little bit into the work we've done with Jim, is, you know, Jim openly says, I've never worked away for anybody else. He's lived on the farm, farmed with his father, and does a great job. And so when I look at, you know, I think it all starts with what is a leader and what type of leader are you? And some people don't think they've got any leadership characteristics or mannerisms, but I'm sure you all have an awful lot more than you think you do. But what type of leader are you? And who is a role model to you? And that's one thing I always sort of look at whenever I do any workshops or anything. Who has been the most important, influential leader or boss or employer or coach or teacher that you have ever had? And I want you just to think about that. Who are they? Visualize them, have them in your mind, write their name down, and then think about what are the characteristics that made them a good leader. Because there isn't a model of leader. You know, we've got Putin, he's a leader. We've got Mother Teresa, she's a leader. You know, we've got so many different styles and types, and you know, different people, different places. But one thing that when I come in, these common things when I ask about people, and they say, right, now, what are the traits? What makes these people so influential, inspirational to you? And the common ones are, they're generally positive. You know, even when we're going through a downward time, we've got droughts, we've got TB, we've got whatever else is happening in the world, they've got a long-term vision for the business. They're thinking positive, they're thinking optimistically about it. But they're also able to be honest. You know, we're not going to get that investment. We're not going to put that new parlour in. We're not going to be able to change the combine because of A, B, C, D. You know, this is going really well, but, you know, we need to work harder on this. And being honest isn't always just about talking about the positive. It is bringing up the negative and the critical too. Another great trait in brilliant leaders, because you cannot do everything yourself, is to be able to effectively and confidently delegate. And, you know, there's some great, you know, that you really recognize it in businesses and things when you see people want to suppress people because they want to have the answers, they want to be the smartest, they want to have all the control, or if they lift people up and encourage and grow them, give them all of the tools so that they can go on and achieve and do great things. And yes, sometimes when we delegate, people grow, they don't always get it right, but we then have to take some personal accountability. Did we give them all of the information to be successful and to succeed? Or was there some key little bits that we forgot to tell them because we just assumed they knew? Communication. It's you know, it's got a long enough word, but it's a really complicated feat to master. And but people that are great leaders are able to effectively communicate to anyone at any level in any part of the sector or business or the world they're working in. And that's a real skill. And it doesn't mean you're older and to be able to effectively communicate. A lot of young people are brilliant at being able to put things across and take people along. Inspiring. Some of my best employees, when I've gone in there, they've inspired me. I've wanted to be them. I've wanted to do the job that they do. And then, you know, being able to align the team, pull in the different personalities, the different characters, the different skill sets, the different roles, and show everyone where they all fit in the bigger picture. But they're balanced. They give credit. You know, for one thing, I don't know what it is with farming. You know, we can't say thank you, well done often enough, and being sincere and with conviction and prompt and praise it as well. So give credit, well done, you did a great job there. Encourage growth. You know, we really do need to learn people, teach people, challenge people. And yes, they may leave, because that's one thing I hear from a lot of farmers. Oh, I get fed up, Heather. You know, I've put them on an AI course, I've put them on a foot trimming course, and they just bugger off. Sorry, job will be better. And that's my cost, and I've lost. But, you know, if we don't encourage growth and we don't educate and learn, you know, they're never going to be that great contributor to our business. So, you know, for me, it's really important to encourage growth. And yes, some people do leave because sometimes, you know, where they want to go, we can't facilitate that within the business. But if you've got a good reputation of teaching and growing people, you will self-fill. People will want to come and work for Heanton Barton because they recognise that you invest in people and they get an opportunity to try a lot of different things, and you encourage people. So they mentor and they're fair as well. But personalities of great leaders and great businesses, you know, they value people over money. Another phrase I often hear, you know, on farms, which I hate, is, oh, the workers, they get more than us, you know, and they're never happy. Actually, they're just getting paid what they're worth, the fair value. You know, a lot of farmers do not value their own time. You know, and, you know, just because they think that they're only getting, you know, a couple of £100 at the end of the month, I think everyone should get that. But, you know, there's a lot of perks and salaries and things. If we were separating what everybody got for, you know, working at home, by the time you got your house, your vehicle and everything, it's surprising. So we really need to value people over money. We need to be competitive in the employment market, because, you know, people can work anyone, anywhere, anytime. And, you know, if you are not paying competitively, you are not given the right working environment, why should they come to you? So we really need to invest in that. We create great habits and we practice great habits, and we have the courage to confront and say no. One thing that I've found incredible when I go around businesses is how many employers are intimidated and bullied by their staff because they're afraid of pulling people up and afraid of saying, no, that's not good enough. And, you know, and it's, but Heather, you know, we're better with this person than nobody. And I'm saying, well, I don't think you are. I think let them go, because you set in the wrong precedent. You are demoralising the good people by, you know, if you haven't pulled up bad behaviour, you're endorsing it. So sometimes you have to say no. Good communicators, they're motivated and capable. They'll do any job. They're respectful, true to the work, and they're capable of leading from the front. And that's another thing I like to see if a young family member's coming back into the business, and to really get respect and to be seen and yeah, by the rest of the team and everything. Don't start at the top because you think you know it all and because you're the son or daughter of the boss. You know, start at the bottom, learn all of the different elements to the business, and then work your way through. And I think every new member of staff should do that within a business. So it's really, really important that the boss and the owner does too. But as we well know, you know, it's all good in practice in theory, and a lot of people, you know, they love the farming, and then suddenly their business has grown, they've expanded because that's what you're encouraged to do. And folks at me, oh, Heather, you know, I used to love this job, but now I hate it. It was great when I was just managing the cattle and working with cattle, but now I've got all these people. That's when the complications and the stress comes in. So how do you go from being a farmer to being an effective leader and a business person? Because often, you know, the bit that you love, and I know this is true to Jim, is doing the practical work. And I wonder, Jim, if you just want to come in there and say, you know, your experience from, because you've come straight in from school, and Dad and Mum are still involved in the business. It's a lovely business. It's got family members as well as seven employees altogether, and then we've got some relief casual staff as well, haven't we?
Yeah, it's well, this is the reason why I have you, why Thomas helped me by talking to yourself, Heather, because I've come straight back from come out of school, and I left school early. I come straight back on the family farm, so the only way I've ever seen is my dad's way of doing it, and he's been great, and he's got me to where I am when I took the farm on. He was so focused and driven on work. He'd work himself into the ground, and that's what I'm trying not to do. I'm trying to value my family time. That sounds awful, doesn't it? I'm just trying to yeah, I'm just trying to appreciate my family while they're still young enough to appreciate. And yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Jim. And it's well done you recognising that. And you know, because too many people, it's too long, it's too late, and their families have up to life. And then when it comes to success, sorry, Tom. Yeah.
So we've had a really good question come in. So you say it's good to start at the bottom, but what if you're thrown into the top?
Yeah. If you're thrown into the top, that's absolutely fine. But take time to look at all the different elements of the business. How's it all made up? Why is it all made up? What's the bigger picture as well? And you know, speak to your staff, speak to experienced people. If you've been thrown in, whether it be there's been a death, there's been an accident, there's been a fallout, there's been a business decision or a split that's caused that change in structure, is suddenly, you know, sometimes the best place to learn is hands-on. Roll up the sleeves, and you will make mistakes. But for me, it's pulling everybody in, and we'll talk through going through. For me, these next steps are really, really key. So if you just want to go on, Jamie, so if you've been thrown in or whatever, you need to look at the vision. What is the vision for the business? Where is it going? Where are you now, and how are you going to get there? What's your dreams? What's your ambitions? What's your goals? What's your drivers? What's your motivators? What are your challenges? I love doing a SWOT analysis, looking at the strengths, weaknesses, threats and opportunities, and bringing your core members of your team involved in this as well. You know, maybe do it as a family or as a management, depending where you are, and depending on the business structure. But your core team should definitely know where you are with this, and then communicate it. And I think that's one of the main failings I see in any organisation, and in families and in relationships. The key people assume everybody knows where we're going. You know, because you're thinking about it all the time, you go to sleep thinking about it, you dream about it, you wake up thinking about it, and because of that, through telepathy, you're assuming everybody else is on point. But once you've got your vision, your dream, or your goal, you need to communicate it, and you need to communicate it to the right level, to the right people. So regardless of who they are or where they are in their business, they know the level of detail that they can impact and involve in as well. So you need to have that written down, you need to have that verbalized, and you need to keep repeating that vision and dream and goal in all of the correspondence and work you do. And then collaboration. You know, a lot of people are self-employed because they'd rather do it themselves, and there's a lot of benefit to that. But if you really want to achieve something quicker and greater, having everyone with you you achieve everything so much smoother and quicker, and you're not alone in those achievements as well. And it's what skill sets do you need to bring in? So, you know, normally with your collaboration, if you're going to be taken on the farm, or you've suddenly been dropped in it and you're suddenly leading this business, you would want to be talking, depending what your sector you're in, you know, so if it's grain, if it's dairy, if it's beef, you want to be looking at your markets that you sell into, your customers, you want to be looking at your landlord, you want to be looking at your tenants, if you're contracting work and contracting land, your contractors and everything as well, your agronomists, your nutritionists, your vet, the bank manager, the accountant. So get everybody pulled in, so that they all know where you're going, because all these opportunities of staff, of land, of contracts, that it's not what you know, it's who you know. So for me, vision, get it written down. A dream or a goal that is written down is 80% more likely to come true. And then the staff and everyone knows what you're working for. All your advisors know what you're working for as well. And then take the right people with you.
Heather, would it be a good chance to bring Mike in at this point? Obviously, Mike's gone through this process several years ago and spoke in depth about this when Jim and I went to visit him at the start of the month. Mike, how did you ensure that you got all your team on board with your vision?
I think it started, if I'm honest, with on a number of fronts actually. I think firstly was to, as Heather's touched on, is make sure that communication is key. So make sure everybody's aware of what you're trying to achieve as a business, what your standards are, what's your mission, what are you trying to achieve as a business, and what direction you're going in. So making sure everybody's in that space. One of the things we did actually is did profiled everybody initially, just so that, well, as a management team, we are, or actually even as business owners, we were aware of how to communicate to people, because not everybody likes to be spoken to how we would like to be spoken to ourselves. Some people want a lot of information and they want to know why, what, where, when, and why, and how, and other people just want to know what to do. And so those sort of things are quite key, because if you get it wrong with that individual, then they'll either not hear you or they're bored within 10 seconds and they're not listening to a word you say anyway. So it is very key to understand the team you've got in and around you. So I think for us, that was probably the sort of light bulb moment of how do we get people to communicate effectively. And even a milker now, we will profile them before they come into the business, so that we're aware of how they like. So if some milkers, they like to know what they're doing 2 weeks in advance. That's not always possible. Some only want to know the day before. So it's effective. It gives us an effective way of managing people. And I think then the building blocks for us came after we'd put that in place. So then you get the alignment, people thinking how you think, and then you start to change the culture, and it's not quick. It's not a quick fix. It does take some while. It does take some time, and I had to make space for myself in the business to be able to do that. So I had to stop feeding cows for 10 hours a day and scraping yards, and I had to actually make sure that I had time to do and sit in the office. And actually, believe it or not, staff management is probably an hour of my day every day of the week, at least. And without doing that effectively, I wouldn't be able to function. The team wouldn't be able to function properly.
Thanks, Mike. Just take you back a step. You spoke about how profiling is really important. Just want to elaborate on what profiling is, please.
Yeah, Heather probably be able to do it better than I can, but we use a system that's set out by another company, and they use a profile called a Vita profile, which it seems to be fairly simple. So and rather than going on red, green, blue, whatever, it's on whether you're a visionary, an investigator, a team maker, or an adventurer, and people fit into those, or fit between or across those I won't say stereotypes, it's not stereotypes, but in those categories. And actually a very simple number of questions can quickly establish where they sit in amongst that, and then that allows you then to know how they are, how they think, because they, and it was a massive surprise to me that nobody thought the same as I did. So or very few of them did.
Sounds really valuable stuff. We've had another question come in, which I guess anybody might have the experience to answer. How do you manage when there's a slight power struggle between the family as the generations switch? So I think this is sort of suggesting that as one generation changes and transfers the management to another generation with existing staff. So how do you manage those situations?
Jim, do you want to answer that one? Because I know we're going to come to that a little bit on one of the next slides.
Oh, what a question. Very, very hard. It's very difficult to manage that. I've always been on to my dad about letting me be in charge of the business, let me run the farm, and it's took me years and years, and then I'm now in charge, but he's still around, and it's a very, very much a guilt thing with me for wanting to stand back and run it in a slightly different way. But the actual changeover between me and him, it wasn't too bad. But he is still here, given his knowledge, experience, and yeah, it's a very hard one. For anyone that knows me and knows my family, they'll know exactly why I'm stumbling a little bit on this one. Dad's a very strong personality.
And I see this repeatedly, you know, when it's like young bull, old bull, and you know, someone's taken over the business, they're giving the staff all the instructions, they've made the plans for the week or the day, and then mum or dad comes in and hand grenades it. And you know, it is really, really difficult for the staff members there to then decide who to follow. Because, you know, Jim said something or other, and then Dad said, and, you know, rightly, there's a respect for the senior generation as well. And, you know, sometimes it's hard to give up the reins when you've ran everything and you've not had anybody challenge you, and they're genuinely not aware of the impact they're having and how that makes people feel and behave. So having someone identify that and bring it up and having that open, honest, respectful conversation can be all it takes. Were you aware of this? Putting clear roles and responsibilities in, which we're going to come on to soon. But yeah, it isn't easy. And I had one farmer say to me, Heather, the next generation's coming into the business. I was really lucky, well, he wasn't lucky, depends how you view it. His parents died quite suddenly. So he was suddenly in, so he didn't have that challenge, but he didn't have the mentor, he didn't have the guide, he didn't have the go-to either. But he was able to take it on in his own way, in his own style. And his daughter is actually coming through now, and he's saying to me, Heather, I'm going to have to leave because I know how much I benefited from being able to lead it my own way, and I'll not be able to sit back and not dip in. So, you know, I thought fair play to them to recognise that, but it's sometimes just sitting down, and sometimes you just have to smile and work your way around it, because, you know, often you're better with them there than without them, and a lot of people would be very, very grateful to have some of their senior partners there that just weren't there to go forward. But Mike touched on mission statements and things, and one of the things, and personalities. So when we started this, Tom, we were very conscious of the AHDB budget and how to use the levy wisely, but also to get the most out of it. And we did, and logistically, I'm based in Southwest Scotland, and Jim's down in Devon. So we started doing Zoom to try and do some coaching and some mentoring going forward. But it soon became quite apparent Jim's learning style through his profile. You know, we didn't actually do profiling on this time, but there is a number of models, and they really are effective. But it soon became apparent that Jim likes to learn on the hoof. He likes to be seeing and doing rather than the reading and reflective and the detail side. So we booked 2 days and came down in January. And before I do any work, the first thing I do with a client is send them a questionnaire to get them thinking, to get them in the process, to get them, because some people like to be reflective. And there's nothing more frustrating when I come on a farm and folk just say, I don't know what the problem is. So we do a questionnaire, and then I want to know, what is the mission, vision and values? And mission, vision and values, I used to be very skeptical of these. I worked with a company that would spend an absolute fortune on them, and we were pretending we were submarines and lifeboats and all kinds of things in these workshops. And then at the end of the day, we came up with these very fancy statements, but they were rubbish. It didn't change the company, and I thought they were just a waste of time. And then it wasn't until I was in New Zealand on my Nuffield that I realised the real importance of having a strong mission, vision and value statement. But they are only working and they're only of value if you live, breathe it and practice it from the bottom up and from the top down. So when I came to work with Jim, I wanted to know, what is your goals, what's your drivers, what would really motivate you? And this wasn't a natural way for Jim, because he's just a very hands-on, earthy farmer that putting things in work didn't sit comfortable. Would that be fair, Jim?
Yes, that would be very fair. Nobody ever really asked me that. Well, in actual fact, somebody had asked me that just before you come down, and it was just like I'm gonna have to really think about that. You know, yeah, there was no real. It was all just about building and expanding, because that's all I've ever known.
And I think as a business, we do need to be more professional, and we do need to look at marketing ourselves. So a mission statement simply explains the company's reason to exist, its purpose, and it describes what it does and its overall intention. And it also reflects the company's priorities and how you will differ from your competitors. And milk companies, planning, lending organisations, banks, they all love this. They set you up a bit more, makes you more professional. So when we sat down with Jim, what is this business all about? What are you striving for? And it was to be quite simply to be a successful dairy business. He wants to increase his herd. He wants to up it to 700 cows, maximising the well-invested resources, to have a really skilled, happy and motivated team. They have a happy team already, which is lovely to see. But we need to make sure we maintain and we really respect and keep that in there as well. But also that we have a happy boss and employer as well. For the business to be well invested and maintained and debt free going forward is something that there's been a lot of investment in the business to get it where it wants to be, to get that expansion. But then we're also looking at building up a cash reserve to allow for off-farm investment, which is brilliant for me with my succession cap on, because so much, every pound of profit is invested back into the business, and then when the next generation comes in, or we may be needing to pay out some non-farming members, family members, that there's no cash allowed, and it spreads your risk. It gives a little bit of different interest, because I think another way of working time management and work-life balance is having other interests off farm that motivates you and inspires you as much as your business. And for Jim to personally always have a purpose and be hands-on and involved in the day-to-day running of the business, but loving what I do each day, and allowing for guilt-free time off. And this was a real struggle in your head, wasn't it, Jim? Everyone's
that is a real, yeah. Sorry, go on, carry on.
Your turn, please.
Oh no, that is a real big thing for me. I've to have guilt-free time off. Just that one sentence is a real big thing for me. Yeah, it's took a lot for me to get my head around.
And you're not alone in that, Jim, at all. And having your mentor, your dad, who lives and breathes, and the farm is his life. And if you're not on the farm, you're lazy, you're a slacker. And to then sort of say, well, no, I want to have an afternoon off with my wife and with family. Why? Well, because that's actually what normal people do. For some reason, and we really need to work this into farming. If we want farming to be a sexy and aspirational career for people to come and work in and to stay in, we need to make sure it's not just a slaving treadmill of 24/7. So then we went on to the vision. So the vision describes the company, how it will appear in the future. So it's a bit aspirational, its goals it wants to achieve and its targets. And it'll create hopefully a mental image for people that don't know the business. So for Jim, we went quite tangible, quite sort of physical targets, a lot of it. So to average in 34 litres per cow on a 385 average days in milk. Benchmarking, we don't do any benchmarking at the moment, and I think that'll be a big confidence booster for Jim to be able to get off farm, know his business, know his numbers, and meet and discuss with like-minded people as well. So he wants to be in the top 20%. Some people would say, should you not be in the top 1%? It's all horses for courses. Sometimes there's a big cost to be in that. We want to be averaging 24-month calving, live weight gains, and death and cull rates in there, maximising milk from homegrown forage, reducing bought-in cost to a minimum, to build a team of key staff that can self-manage and effectively run the day-to-day business, and to be recognised as a progressive professional dairy business that is respected and engaging in the community and local schools, which was a new one. And the reason I want all these mission and vision and values in is because when I am let loose with the staff, I don't want it to be a negative. I don't want to be all in the past. When I'm talking to the team, I use this mission, vision and values for all of the staff reviews. This is where Jim and the family aspire to take this business. Where are you now? And do you think this is achievable? Are you bought into this? Does this excite you? Do you want to be a part of this? And where do you think we might struggle? Because there's nothing worse if it's blowing smoke. So I will really use these for all of the conversations going forward. And then the values support.
Just before we go too far away from mission, we've had a really interesting question come in. Jim, have you had any guilt-free time off the farm? If so, how did you manage? How did you make it happen? And if not, how can you make it happen?
Well, thank you, Tom. Yes, I take every Friday. I milk Friday mornings, but Friday then for the rest of the day is my day, where generally I will do a little bit of book work in the morning for an hour, but then the rest of the day is my own, which me and my good wife, we have started doing a bit of walking together or anything with the family. If there's something on, we'll try and do it on a Friday where I can go and be part of it as well. But how hard was it? Yeah, it was pretty hard. I've been with my family working as hard as they have to give me the opportunities that I have. I suppose, and they're still here. I just that guilt of walking away and leaving it behind, not in a bad way, but it just, it does play on you. But no, Fridays now Fridays are a complete, everybody's accepted it. Everybody knows. Jim ain't gonna be around because it's Jim's day,
Have you got that weekend booked off, Jim?
Yes. Last night. Only last night, but it's booked off.
If it's not in the diary, I think, for my answer, if you want time off, get it in the diary. Because we can all be as guilty of that. The days run into each other. There is always something to do. But if it's in the diary and you genuinely want to do it, you will make it happen. And we'll put a little bit in about not putting yourself into the rota all the time as well, which is what Mike touched on. So yeah, getting into the values is how you're going to be seen and how your team are going to behave, and this comes into a bit of your profiling as well when you're doing your induction and you're doing your interviews. Are people going to fit and live and breathe these values for you as well? And it's, if you're not on farm, you want to know that these aren't just there when you're there. Everybody follows these through. So we want to be recognised for taking pride in what we do, respecting our livestock, our people, respecting and respected by our neighbours, community and environment. Environment is a big thing coming forward, and I'm seeing that obviously more and more. To be a safe, secure and empowered place of work, growing people, growing the business, to be honest, to have a lot of fun, and to be trustworthy were all really, really key. And what was lovely, once we'd worked this through with Jim, Jim was very glad to be allowed to get out of the office. It's quite safe to say that's not your happiest, most comfortable environment in there, is it, Jim? And you could see it was like a kid let loose. Once I said, that's great, I'd like to see all the team now. And if you want the next slide, Jamie. So we looked at who all of the people are that's employed on the farm, and I wanted to know what they all did. And it's a useful process separating all the jobs down, because if you worked in Aldi, if you worked in Tesco's and Lidl or anything, treat your farm like that. It's all different divisions, and give everyone a bit of a role and responsibility of what their division is. And the team responded so well to this. We only had about half an hour with everybody. We talked through the mission, vision and values. We talked through the goals. We talked through Jim as an employer. We talked about the farm and the environment and the facilities and everything. And, you know, it was so complimentary and, you know, unanimous about the praise for the family, the security, the investment, and the way they were all looked after. And, you know, when we're looking at where Jim fits in, you know, how Michael and Jane, Stephen and Jane have transitioned, Jim coming in has to be fully complimentary to them. They are so respectful of him going in, and you know, often it is hard handing over the reins, seeing someone else coming in with different ideas, because you're definitely taking the business, you know, to a different direction to where mum and dad was, Jim. But you know, they're on board with your vision, they're on board with your team. And it's sometimes they're very fit and very active. They are nowhere near retirement yet. I would have got marched off the farm, I think, if I brought that up. But so giving them roles and responsibility that utilise that skill set, so they've still got that pride and purpose. But Dad really loves seeing people and talking to people as well. So, you know, the gopher, going to the market, to running errands and things like that's really important. And he's there as a backup with the team. And mum is very hands-on still with the paperwork, the first aid, you know, and actually mentoring and nurturing the team because they are a young team. But we just talked about this earlier, Jim, how your staff have responded, because it was quite nervous. I know when I go into staff reviews, it's very normal, very common practice on other businesses. In agriculture, it can be seen quite suspicious. What have we done? What are you after? Am I going to get sacked? Am I in trouble? What does this person want? But because of the way we approach it, on the whole, people relax and are quite forthcoming, and they open up a lot. You were quite surprised, Jim, in some of the things they shared with me, weren't you?
Yeah, I'm just looking at it now.
Yeah. So, what was the feedback, Jim, from those sessions for your team? What were, you know, because it's quite nervous for you letting a stranger come in.
It was nice to hear how they also valued the business. That they seemed to be on my wave. They seem to be understanding where I want to go. But what I found after you'd had your little chat with them, even though they knew where I wanted to go, more of the specific roles they had to play, if that makes any sense, the different little bits and pieces that, oh yeah, that's more my, you know, I could do that, or that's more my job role, then automatically just thinking, oh, Jim will cover that. Yeah, and it's been very, very good. I mean, I took Harrison in on one of my meetings with my feed rep, and we had a proper sit down discussion there for an hour. And
just clarify what Harrison's role in the organisation is.
Pardon?
Just clarify what Harrison's role is.
Harrison would be my herdsman. And just sitting down with him in the meeting, and we all sort of come up with different ideas, and we've all got a vision over the next 12 months of what we want to achieve for the cows with forage intakes and forage quality. And it was very good. And at the end of that little meeting, I felt pretty good about it. And Andy, who's my feed rep, he rang me up and he said, wasn't that really, really good? You know, it was really good. We got somewhere with the meeting rather than not saying that we don't need to get anywhere with the meeting, but yeah, it was really good to have a sense of direction with us all in the same, pulling in the same way.
And I think that was one thing I definitely picked up with speaking to them. And I said, you know, you work with Jim, but you have responsibility for this, you know, in an agreed capacity. Because the last thing we want to do is let everybody loose and they're buying kit and doing things. You know, so it has to be in a shared and trusted environment. And you know, well done, Jim, for bringing Harrison in. And it's great that they've all responded and acted that way as well. Next slide, please, Jamie. So yeah, you know, it is challenging going forward. The whole, you know, the marketplace. You know, it used to be an average farmer could make money. Now exceptional farmers can struggle. So I love this model. I learned this in New Zealand, in Australia, cash. So what knowledge, attitude, skills and habits do you need in your business to be resilient? You know, so look at your workplace, look at your staff, look at your people that you've got in there. What are they really, really good at? What do they love doing? What are they ambitious to learn and try? Where do they want to grow? And then what skills does the business need going forward? So have you got the right people in the right seat within your business? And are we fully utilizing them to the best potential? Because, you know, with the best will in the world, you know, we are not going to have all of the skills ourselves. So how can you utilize ones? And this was definitely brilliant from my point of view. Jim's got some superstars in that business that have got a lot of ambition, a lot of skill, a lot of ability. And it's just looking at how, you know, the jobs Jim needs done are the jobs that need to be done on a day-to-day basis. They've got to be done. So how do we cover? How do we allow people to grow? How do we utilize more, but make sure the core work is done as well, so that we retain these great people rather than them get fed up and bored and leave because we didn't listen to them, we didn't talk to them. So we're definitely looking at that when we're recruiting. So look at the skills, look at the different, don't just get a general farm worker, don't just get a tractor person. You know, what are the skill sets that we need in? Have you got the right package? You know, for me, don't just pay the minimum. You know, and have maybe a progressive start. You've got an induction period, and then, you know, you can move on. Training, really, really important. Check references. Oh my God, the amount of people that do not check references, and don't just check the references they've given you. Go on social media. That is an eye opener. You know, speak to. It's a small world in agriculture. Speak to other people, and if they are good and they are really serious about working for you, they will be checking you out. So what is your reputation? What is, you know, how are you reviewed by the feed company, the tanker drivers, the vet and different people, the post person? Because, you know, it works both ways now. And, you know, where do you advertise? Depending on the marketplace, it could be online. Depending on the skill set, you know, the pay grade, it might be in a press. It might just be word of mouth. As social media, we use Facebook for our business a lot. It works really, really well if we're filling places like, you know, tractor, calf rearing, general farm worker, milkers. But if it was the manager, we would go, you know, to a different level as well. But it is your word of mouth. And what we talked about with Jim's team is, because we're wanting some more relief to come in at the weekends, because he's got a young team, they all want the weekends off, they've got sports, they've got different things. So we said, well, let's bring in some really good relief, and then we can have some flexibility in that workforce as well. You know, so pass on a little bit of responsibility to the team to promote the business as well. Next slide, Jamie.
Just before we go too much further, Heather, there's a good question that's come in. Should you share financial information with your staff, i.e. target profits, etc.?
It'd be interesting what Mike says. Personally, I think you should. There's a different level that everybody should know, and that's where your vision, your communication, your collaboration, and depending on the different levels of where you are, you need to know what you can influence and impact on. And, you know, that's perfect for this. So for me, if I'm working for Jim, you know, you can have physical KPIs, which is the litres, which is the cases of mastitis, profit per cow. You can do an awful lot because people are smart, and a lot of staff now are online, they're learning, they're reading, they're speaking to their colleagues. They want to know a little bit more. But yeah, they don't need to know the debt, they don't need to know the borrowing, they don't need to know the repayment terms, they don't need to know all of that. But you should definitely be talking about that to your senior management team. whether that be, you know, your wife, your husband, mum and dad that's involved in the partnership, the bank manager and the accountant, you know, so it's different levels for different people. But, you know, for the calf breeder, for example, they should know the cost of breeding a calf. They should know what the daily live weight gain challenges are. They should know what the feed costs are, what, you know, the impact of a dead calf is, an impact of pneumonia, you know, all these things, without overwhelming them, because again, personality styles and profiling. But some people, you know, if they don't know, if someone keeps breaking kit and machinery, damn right they need to know the cost of that. You know, and it comes a point that we don't mind mistakes, we don't mind accidents, people have to learn, but we do not forgive being an idiot, you know, repeatedly. So there has to be then a consequence to people not respecting.
Mike,
yeah.
do you want to share your experience on that?
Yeah, I totally agree with Heather. People cannot influence outcomes if they don't know what the cost of most things are, if they're totally in the dark. And also they want to know what if the business is profitable, because they want to know whether they've got a secure job as well. I think it's important. We share with the management team, we share everything right down to the P&L. Outside of the management team, they would get issued a set of KPIs, so they would know the financial KPIs. Like, for instance, the milking team, we want to know how we compare with the top 25% when it comes to whether it's lameness or milk sold or teat, even things down like teat dip use. If you're trying to explain to somebody that actually we need to enhance slightly how you using teat dip for dipping cows, if you can explain it to them in a financial way, that quite often works as well as you just telling them to do it. If they say, well, this is what we're using and this is what our peers are using, oh, we need to do better. And then it's how you get that buy-in from people. And if you keep people in the dark, they're just going through the motions. What you want to do is get people invested in your business as well as that you feel you're invested in your business. And I think that's been probably a quite of a journey that we've had to go on. We were very keep it all to ourselves, but you can't run it as effectively if people don't really know what you know, what drives the business. You know, why can't they? I mean, it even comes down to, like you touched on it earlier, why can't you have a new tractor? Well, there's a reason we can't have a new tractor. And if they understand that, they'll accept it.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we talked about this slide quite a bit with Jim, in that trying to manage his guilt of work-life balance and things, and a lot of owners and employees don't realise the impact it has on their staff, because when I asked all of his staff how many fully utilised their holidays, very few actively did, because they knew if they were away, it would put more work on Jim. So, and for me, holidays are really important. Time off's really important. Work-life balance, family commitments, hobbies. You need to rest, because farming is one of the most dangerous industries out there. And it is because we're rushing, we're cutting corners, we're tired, and we've got away with it. So it's really important to take time off. And I think that's where Jim has to practice being a role model, because he has got a young team there. And we talked about burnout happening. And, you know, burnout doesn't just happen at the top, it happens through all of the different levels within the team. And, you know, with the best will in the world, they have, you know, a lot of other influences happening behind the scenes as well. So I'd love for Jim to be a role model, to have the courage to book the time off, to have the courage to, you know, to step back a little bit, give everyone that pride and purpose, and allow people to be more accountable for their actions and their behaviours going forward. And I think, you know, with the right team, and keep working on it, as Mike said earlier, it doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't always go right every day either, but it doesn't mean that you give up on it. So for me, those are quite important. And you know, when people start, you know, it says, oh, can you milk cows? Can you drive a tractor? Oh, that's great, because we're rushing. Away you go. Induction is so important. Jim, you've got some new members of staff coming, so I'm really looking forward to hearing how the induction goes. You know, it is about showing them around the farm, showing them the map of the business, showing them the sheds, showing them the coffee room, where the loos are, what are the hours of work, who's going to be their sort of go-to mentor to look after them, you know, show them the exact way that you want the job done, and show them again, have it written down, have it laminated. We've got a lot of farms now having their own YouTube channel of how things are done, because this modern lifestyle, everything is on a phone. So, you know, put milk in, get someone to video it and have a YouTube. If you're changing your dual wheels, if you're setting up your fertilizer, if you're, you know, you're dehorning a calf, you know, have all them on YouTube, have the family, you know, the family do it and everything, and then review as well. And one thing we, whenever I do staff appraisals and farm reviews, I am appalled really at how backward agriculture is in employment contracts, job descriptions, health and safety manuals, farm manuals. And, you know, it's nearly always on the action list. We need to do this. And Jim loved this challenge, didn't you, Jim? You just rolled up your sleeves and said, I'm up for this, Heather.
Yeah, they've all got an employment contract.
There.
Sorry, what was that?
So there was a lot of nodding going on from Mike whilst you were talking about the documents and so on. So Mike, is that something that you've seen some real?
So onboarding is absolutely key. So when they turn up on the first morning, they go into the office and we make sure we get everything done before we let them put their boots on and go out on the farm. So that's everything from the health and safety statements to the contract. They're given that straight away, all the onboarding stuff. And so they're aware, and actually, you know, from a legal perspective, we always make sure that we check their right to work anyway, but make sure we've got copies of driving licenses and such like on file, because that just makes life a lot easier. So yeah, and then it's important to actually set the time aside, and we've been guilty of this in the past of like, right, get that done and then get them out there. But actually now I'm making sure that I'm aware that I'm not doing anything in those times when the new guys are in, so that I'm actually there and I'm speaking to them at least 3 or 4 times in that first day, and if not, and then probably keeping that going until they feel comfortable, and I feel comfortable as well that they're fully up to speed. And then, you know, normally depending on what role they're fitting in within the business, but then obviously they would have a line manager. So we're quite big on decision trees and things like that. So, you know, there's a communication way of communicating. So, you know, and a communication net tree as well, so that people understand that, you know, that there's somebody they can communicate to, even if they've got a problem, whether that be a home problem, a problem at work, or just, you know, just something they want to get off their chest, that there's somebody within the team that they can go to and talk to.
And it is a legal requirement as well, and you know, it's something we really need to step up. And there is now templates and different things out there. You know, there's plenty of people to cover, but some people take out an insurance on HR, you know, because if you get it wrong, it can be costly. So keeping all your documents, if there's an accident book, near miss book, which Jim's was proud to show up the other day that we've got that bought, make sure you fill it in and record it and everything. Well, it's no good blank. Your farmer should, and everybody absolutely. I know often we think there hasn't been an accident, it was fine, but if someone's just got squeezed while they've been working with cattle in a crush, someone you know, got a finger stuck, lifting a linchpin out or something, you know, get them written down, because what you realise is if 2 or 3 people are doing this consecutively, that, oh shoot, you know, we need to address this going forward. So one thing Jim and the family are brilliant with at Heanton Barton is getting everyone sat down together. Your coffee time, it's a looked forward to event. Everybody's in there, there's banter, there's chat, there's a bit of mickey taking, but you could see if someone's got their head down, you can see if someone's just not themselves, and then again in the afternoon, which is great, and we definitely want to maintain that. And for Jim, I think I picked up, it's quite difficult of being one of the lads, and because they are young, and being fun and people liking you, because often as a boss we want to be liked, but then being able to distance yourself because you are the employer, you're the role model, and you know, so not getting dragged in to to the real immature, silly stuff, because it can spiral, and suddenly you've crossed a line that you weren't aware of innocently. And I noticed you've got some chat groups, Jim, and one thing that you did was pull out of some of them so they could have their banter and chat, and it keeps that little degree of separation. But one thing we have brought in is that we have a little bit more structure to some of the meetings. So every morning at coffee time, we'll give an update of what's happening that day. Anyone ill, anyone need any help, anything broken, anything changed. We'll have a weekly review. Now, I don't know how you agreed to do that, whether it was at the end of the week for next week or what is in the morning. And then we were going to do a sort of monthly, quarterly. So we're planning ahead. We're not firefighting. So what have you impacted on and actioned on there, Jim?
I was being completely truthfully honest with you, Heather. Not a great deal at the moment. As I said to you, we've been TB testing. It's been a hell of a January for me. But I am planning on every Monday having a bit of a forward focus on the most important, or a list of jobs. I was thinking to myself, I was get everybody to put up 2 or 3 jobs that they think needs doing, write them up all on the board, put them in the order of priority, and try and achieve over the course of that week getting them jobs done. Once probably every month, perhaps beginning of every month, getting everybody and just having a bit of a chit chat, making sure that everybody's all right, see if there's any issues, and that is something I am going to put into place. But January's been just a bit of a slog for me so far. I'm sorry.
No, and that is life, but you've just got to be careful. February isn't a slog, and then it's March, and because time just disappears. And what I've found is these are so important to the staff.
Yeah.
Taking half an hour of just stopping when we are so busy, just to review, could actually save you so much time going forward.
Yeah. Jim, I know when we visited Mike, we discussed that those daily informal chats are really useful for the team. Mike spoke about formalizing some of the chats that he's done with his team in terms of management processes. Have you considered, because you've got your office that you're sat in now, which is a different environment to where you have those chats, which is 20 meters away in a very similar office where the staff have their breakfast, have you looked at periodically moving that to a different location just to set a different scene when you're having those discussions with them?
That was going to be part of my once a month in here, and we'll have a good chat about what's going on, and if anybody's got any issues, to bring them up. What we've got. I mean,
We lost you a little bit then with the internet connection, I'm afraid.
We also talked about having like bacon rolls or bringing lunch in or cakes in the afternoon to feed people so they really look forward to it, because there's nothing worse than a meeting for a meeting's sake where folk don't come away with a bit of a buzz, a bit of a purpose, a bit of an outcome, and what we talked about to Jim was he could bring the vet in one day, he could bring the milk buyer in one day, he could bring different people in once a month or once a quarter, just to give them a bit of an industry update about what's happening, because sometimes hearing from the same person, the same voice, the same tone all the time doesn't always have that same impact, whereas by bringing someone else in, it makes them feel quite special. Oh God, Jim's told us that. Oh yeah, well we're already doing that, or we're not doing that, or yeah, Jim said we had to do that. It just reinforces you and just gives it a fresh perspective. So I couldn't reiterate the value of doing those more. And you have got a team that would just absolutely soak it up and value that so much, Jim.
Yeah, I do see that now, Heather, since you come down. It's opened my eyes up a little bit more to how much more like sponges they are, and with just lead them in the right direction will make a big difference for me.
Yeah, and I think we've got on the slide how to retain staff. One of the reasons people leave is because they don't get the boss, or the boss doesn't get them. And it's not till we're leaving and we've been offered another job and we go and put our notice in, and the boss said, oh, well, I'd have given you more money, or I'd have done this. And you think, well, if I was worth it, why didn't you give it to me at the time? So I really encouraged him. We've done the appraisals once. You know, sometimes it is better having an external person coming in, but you know, a lot of employees do this really informally when they're milking, when they're in their pickup going to go and check stock, when they're, you know, going somewhere, changing them over, just how are things going, what's happening, and asking them about their life and their personal life and stuff as well. Because, you know, we're all at work for different things. For some people, we just want to go to work so we can live. We've got hobbies, we've got friends, we don't need, you know, we switch off as soon as we finish. For other people, work is their life, and they've really got complications and different things going on. And, you know, I heard some farmers say, oh my God, I feel like I'm a counsellor or a therapist. And, you know, but it is having time. And as an employer, the best employer will make time for their staff. There is nothing worse than, oh, I've got an issue. Oh, I was going to go and speak to you, Jim, but I could see you were busy. I could see you were rushing. I knew January was a bad month for you. And then it's rolled on, and then the opportunity's lost and you've lost them. So you know, having that time, taking yourself out the rota, which we'll move on to the next slide.
Yeah, I do a little bit of that. We've got a farm sort of 5 mile up the road, and very often we're in the truck, and that's where we have a bit of a discussion. And I do, you know, I am in touch with the lads as far as that goes, to a certain degree anyway.
So when we'd done the meeting, 2-day meeting that we had with Jim and his team, there was action points, because we like to leave Jim with something to scratch his head at and something to do. So, you know, this guilt-free time off is really important. So, you know, the Friday, I have to commend him with that. And for me, I'd like him to try and take at least half a day off at the weekend as well, so that then he can choose to work, or is there as a backup. It's not that you're burnt out and your family are like, oh, for God's sake, Dad, you know, you're always working. Because we do want this to be, you know, a lovely place that the family feel fondly of as well. So for me, when you do the rota, take yourself out or give yourself time to shadow the team. Maybe go and do, you know, put a couple of rows of units on so you can see it. Maybe go around the field when they're harvesting, spraying, plowing, whatever. But you're not doing the whole 12 hours. And then let someone else on the chopper and the combine and things, which is quite key for them. We're quite keen to be having that step up. But yeah, put time in to train, to skill, and to talk to your people and your staff and your consultants and things coming forward. The HR side did concern me, and we've brought Mum and Lindsay in to help that, and hopefully your accountant does your PAYE just to make sure we've got everything right. ACAS is a brilliant organisation to check that you've got the wordings and things right, because it is different England, Scotland and Ireland and Wales. So make sure you've got that right and review it. Biosecurity, you know, we were all really good with foot and mouth, and I think some places have just got a little off the gas. So we need to make sure we've got health and safety, foot baths and all of that kind of thing in place. Mike, you'll see the visitors sign-in book. You made a big impact when Jim came to your farm. He thought that was great, and just that, you know, your staff member took it upon themselves to lead on that one. So I don't know how Jim's going to engage in that, but that was something that he definitely went for. Because again, you know, we do need to step up. We've got contractors, we've got building people, we've got all sorts of folk coming into our farm. And do we know who's on our farm? Do we know when they came in? Do we know when we left? We've got a lot of lone workers. You know, we've got big machinery, we're not, you know, that we can't hear. So we're wearing high vis, all of that kind of things. You know, we do have to be a lot more forward thinking and preventative on that one. And then I should be on commission for whiteboards. I love whiteboards. Jim's got a brilliant breakfast room, as Tom said, you know, but have breakages, have shopping lists. I love 10-minute jobs. If someone's got 10, 15 minutes that they're free till something's happening, You know, have that list of jobs, and I absolutely agree. Prioritise them, Jim. You don't want them just picking all the jobs and the ones that you've been desperate for. So we sometimes traffic light some of them that we need to do, and that can be really valuable. So you've implemented some of this, haven't you, Jim?
Yeah, we've got a shopping list on the whiteboard. We haven't done the breakages, but the 10-minute jobs, they all go on the whiteboard. And as they get done, they get rubbed off. That is really good. Going back to the plan, upping the skills of the team. I got one of the lads here. He's wanting to do a bit of welding there one day, and I give him a little. Well, I say a little job. It's quite a big job, but he got the welder all out. He had a go, and it wasn't perhaps the prettiest of welding. And I just took 5 minutes with him, because I do all the welding here. I just took 5 minutes with him, explained to him what to do and how to go about it. And in all fairness and credit to him, he done a fantastic job by the time he finished. And that was just 5 minutes out of my day, and I just let him go rather than be so normal course. I just jumped straight in. Right, I'll do that. You go do something else. And it was very rewarding to see him accomplish what he had to do. It was very good.
Brilliant. And having all of that written down, it's really important also to record all the trainings and things you've had. Telehandlers, your quad bike, please make sure you've got all those helmets now, Jim, and everyone's trained to use the AHDB. Get that all written down, get it dated. First aid training, CPR training, and things like that. It's really, really important to make sure that's up to date as well.
Yeah.
Next slide, please, Jamie. So as we know, it's great these consultants coming down and just saying, this is what we need to do, off you go, and life will be a dream, but it doesn't always go to plan. TB gets in the way, cold and flu gets in the way, farm assurance gets in the way, and life can just be a bit busy. Next slide, Jamie. And it was lovely, Mike, we were just having a little chat before the webinar went live. I got introduced to this model when I started up my own back in 2012, and I love real simple clarity. So this is the 1 minute manager, and the MBWA in the middle is the key to it is manage by walking around. So many times we are doing a job and we're looking around, but we don't actually take time to just walk around our businesses. So with any company, any organization, what I say is, you know, agree your goals and think, what is this business for? What are we striving for? What is our achievements? What is going to be a good success quarter this year in our 10, 20 years of career that we want? So agree your goals that you're working for, break them down, and then clarify the standards for every one of the different departments, the different sectors. So whether you're beef, sheep, dairy, whether you're feeding, whether you're grazing, your agronomy, whatever it might be, have some real clear standards, standard operating procedures. This is the way we are going to operate. This is the way we milk our cows on this farm. This is the way we dehorn our calves on this farm. This is the way we, you know, manage our silage on this farm, because it will be slightly different. And then you review that and you check that it is being done right. And that is by managing by walking around. So it's having time every day to just go around without your phone, without a job to do, and just walk around the farm looking at things and looking at opportunities. When something's gone well, and the standards have been achieved, the goals have been achieved, it's opportunities to praise, to be prompt, to be specific, to be sincere. That is great. I haven't seen that clamp face looking as tidy. The cows are looking great. The bedding's all up to the, you know, the feed is in a good place. And look at the grazing, you know, whatever it be, and talk about the fence, be really sincere with it. And I know a lot of farmers, they don't give praise, because as soon as you give praise, it's like with kids, they'll go and get cheeky or naughty and they'll bugger something up down the line. But it is really important. We do not do that enough. So when things are done right, because I know myself often, when you've been away, you come home and you just see what's not been done. You don't always see what has been done. So, but likewise, if when you're walking around, things aren't to standard, things aren't good enough, things aren't being looked after, you need to deal with it promptly, and don't put it off, because a lot of time we procrastinate, we think, oh, it'll be fine, it'll go away, and then it blows up, or we lose good staff. So reprimand privately, be emotionally neutral, which can be really difficult because depending on how bad it is or how tired you are and everything else, you can blow up. And then separate the person from the problem. And what you've got to be really careful at is that you treat everybody equally and fairly and the same. Because what I've heard when I've been in farming, you know, you can tell by the tone of voice when someone likes someone and they don't. So be careful that you don't start putting someone in the hate box, or that you're in the hate box as well. Because once someone hates you or you hate them, there's no way out of it. There's no respect. And it's very, very difficult to get back out the hate box. But you know, if someone is late, if someone is not doing something well, someone doing something dangerously, they're not doing it right, it is your duty to pull them up and to either retrain them, to re-show them, give them some chances. Is it the fact that they didn't fully understand, they haven't been given all the materials, they haven't been given all the resources, something's changed, they've been told by somebody else to do it differently? Give them a chance again. And is it then, you know, that they're not the right person for that job? Should they be better fitted? We've got some that should never be scraper drivers. They are definitely better milking than on a machinery. And likewise, we've got some that are far better, you know, that don't work that well with other people. They're brilliant on the scrapers. They're just really methodical, quietly work away. So maybe we just have them in the wrong role. But it's a great model, it's a great discipline, and if things are spiraling out of the way, please come back and utilize this. Have we got clear goals? Does everybody in the team know what they're doing, why they're doing it, what the purpose is? Do they know what is good? And then review it and everything as well. So next slide, please. And you know, sort of in summary, whenever I work with any client, you know, time management, plan 80% of your day, plan 80% of your week. Where one of the biggest mistakes we all make is having 101 things to do. So immediately we've set ourselves up for a failure, we've set ourselves up for disappointment, and we've already overloaded tomorrow because that was already packed, and now we've got to fill on more. So planning 80, or even better, planning 60% of your day allows you to have time to talk to people, allows for those unexpected phone calls, surprise rep visits, breakages, cattle getting out, anything like that. So, and again, one thing with time management is having a jotter now, because some people can feel a bit overwhelmed, and have a sheet on one side of your jotter of what went well today, what really went well, what did we enjoy, what was successful, and then on the other side, what didn't work, why it didn't work, and what we could do differently. And if you get in a habit of filling that out over the next few weeks and then review it, because often you think you haven't achieved anything, we've so much to do, or I've achieved nothing, I'm not getting anywhere. And it's been one of the greatest feedbacks I've had for a number of clients is, oh my God, when I've looked back, I'm achieving so much more than I thought I was. Because agriculture, we can get in this spiral of negativity and doom and talking ourselves down, rather than say, God, that was a good day, we did well. So clear goals, get your HR in order, team meetings, whiteboards, calendars, bring in outside consultants, advisors when needed, document all your training, your development, and know when to delegate. Next slide, Jamie. We'll keep going. Next slide. And for me, most of all, is surround yourselves with those that bring out the best in you and not the stress in you. Are you a radiator? Do you lift people up? Do you motivate? Do you drive? Do you encourage? Do you support? Or are you a drain, where you're negative, you're controlling, you put people down, you're always talking about the doom and the worst? I don't know if you can hear my dog, someone's just arrived. She's got very excited on them. You know, so think about yourself as a leader, as the boss. Are you a radiator? Are you a drain? Think about your team. Have you got people in there that are pulling the others down? Do we need to work with them? Do we need to let them go? They don't fit in. And then also, whatever you're striving for, associate, live, breathe, walk, talk with these kind of people, and you will be that successful leader and business owner too.
Thank you very much. So, Jim, we've got a few moments left. Would you just like to talk about anything that you've put in place and anything you've already started to change since going down this route of coaching with Heather?
I've got what have I put into place? My Fridays are my own, to a certain degree. I generally try to have every Sunday off unless something happens that I've got to step up and stand in. I've started doing a bit more training. I've done a telehandler course. I've got an AHDB course all booked up, ready to go. So these are just different bits and pieces that I'm just trying to have training and certificates for. One of the most sticking out things to me that's happened for me since Heather's been down, and just going through with the lads the job descriptions, all of a sudden, even though they sort of knew what they had to do, and I just thought they knew what to do. There's been a few cases now where they're like, oh, that's part of my job description. That is, I'll do that. And you think to yourself, well, blimey, I'd have thought you'd have just naturally done that before Heather come down and heard the job roles of that particular job. But I look forward where we're heading. I look forward. We've taken some of the action plans with the meetings. I thank Heather very much for everything that she's contributed to helping me through this, and just having her come down, like she said earlier on, webinars wasn't really the best of things for me, but coming down and seeing me face to face was a really great stepping stone, or a big leap in the right direction, should I say. Yeah, and there we have it. Really.
Thank you very much. Mike, have you got any recommendations or tips that you would give to Jim or anybody else who's looking at making that step from a working farm manager to a business leader?
For anybody looking to do it, is just make a start at it, because you just don't keep thinking about it. You need to make a start. So that's what I would say. Once you start it, it does get on the journey. It does become easier as you go along. And yeah, Jim's doing some great things. And I mean, I've learned a few things this morning actually I'm not doing that Jim's doing. So it's amazing how we pick information up off of one another. And I think that's key. And actually, getting off farm is if you can make that time is so valuable for your own well-being and sanity. And I think we underestimate that when we're just not fresh if you're continuously working all the time.
Yeah, I just before you go on too far, because I thank Heather. Thank you to Mike for letting me and Tom come up to your place, because it was a real eye-opener of where I would like to be from where I am now, and it's definitely given me a bit of a drive and the focus or the vision to see where I'm going. So thank you.
No problem.
And Heather, I'm just conscious that we've got 3 large-scale dairy farmers sat in the room, and a question that's coming from our audience, which isn't necessarily represented by the 3 in the room. Is leadership really valuable on smaller farms, or is it just suited to large-scale businesses?
Yeah, and I think it's defining leadership. I work with, young farmers, I work with crofters, I work with new entrants, so it's not just big businesses that we work with. And everything we've talked about here is absolutely replicable on whatever scale, or even just in your own personal domestic arrangement as well. And I think if you're a smaller business, your challenges and your issues, your time management, you've still got the same hours in the day, you've still got the same things as well. So it is all absolutely relevant. And you know, when we're looking at leadership, it's even when you get out of bed in the morning, how motivated are you? When the first people you see, how do you speak to them? How do you make them feel? When someone comes onto your farm or your business, how do you engage and talk about your business? And I think as an industry, there's a lot of brilliant promoters and positive, and it's such an exciting business to be in. It's such an exciting industry. It's a challenge, but my God, everything's a challenge out there at the moment. And agriculture has, you know, historically always been a secure place in many, many ways. Don't get me wrong, it has its challenges as well. So, you know, to talk favourably, to talk positively, to talk about, you know, your vision of the business, where you see your job going, your farm going, your business going, your herds, your genetics. Talk with it with pride, excitement, and with passion. And, you know, be excited about what you're doing, and folk will want to work with you. They'll want to support you. Opportunities will come up. You know, when there's a lot of land opportunities going to come up, there's a lot of people sort of getting tired now, and, you know, they don't necessarily want to sell it. They don't necessarily want to go to the biggest person. It's more about someone with the right values, the right beliefs, the right behaviours, that you could get the knock on the door and say, look, Sarah, look, Sam, you know, I'm wanting to ease off. Do you want to take on this business? Do you want to grow it? You know, so how you behave, walk, talk, live, breathe, it is replicable for every skill and every person.
That takes us up to just a tiny bit over time. So thank you so much, everybody, for logging on today, for contributing your questions. For any more information, please go to ahdb.org.uk. Have a search for labour life cycles, which will take you through everything that we've discussed today. Speak to your local knowledge exchange managers. There are some time management sheets that can be sent out to you, very similar to the whiteboards that you were discussing. And please take the opportunity to get a farm. We've discussed how valuable that is. So have a look for what else we've got coming up in your local area. Thank you all very much for your time. Thank you for your great insights. Thank you for your prior knowledge, and Jim, thank you very much for your openness. We wish you all the best. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.